How's it going, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Thomas. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you get notifications whenever we drop a video on an almost daily basis. And today we're going to look at the chart of Rivian. So it has deviated from this main trend line that goes a bit further back. You see Rivian had high hopes of being a multi-$100 stock back in the day, but has since gone back to sub-humble beginnings around the $8.26 mark. Now, something you guys might or might not know is that Rivian actually has the backing of Amazon. People I've spoken with in my line of work seem to like them more than Tesla's because their range is, in reality, as advertised. So I hear Tesla owners tell me that their Tesla doesn't go as far as the range says. I have families of 4 who tell me it's supposed to go this range, it goes this range. Everything, what you see is what you get, and they love Rivians. They're happy with the quality. They're happy with everything. They feel that Rivian delivers on its promises as an EV company. The Iran situation is unfortunately highlighting the advantages of the EV market at the expense of the vast majority of people who are currently not driving EVs, who are driving gas-powered vehicles. I would expect an uptick at your local Rivian dealership, at your local Tesla dealership, and another company we're going to talk about pretty soon, your local Lucid dealership, as the coming days, weeks, and months continue to play out. Depending on how it goes, will depend on how much business those respective shops see. Now, back into the chart. You see it deviated from the main baseline a while back. I do not expect this to continue though, because you know we love gap fills on this channel, and there's a gap fill right here. And if we draw straight out, would you look at that? It coincides with that base trend line we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just drag this out a little bit more. And where those almost meet, I fully expect Rivian to come back to the sub $13 mark, where I will be a buyer. Hopefully it doesn't have a gigantic pop and go to, fill this gap first that it still hasn't quite filled up at 2310. So in a perfect world, for me at least, Rivian goes here, I buy, then it goes here, and it breaks through and onto, greener pastures and all that, right? Anything could happen. We're kind of in no man's land right now. EV stocks could go bullish on the gas news. They could shoot up here. Like I said, doesn't matter to me. And I've said in previous videos, I have my level. I wait for my level. I don't care. I have to keep emotion out of this as much as possible, because if I start thinking, oh my God, gas is going up. Look what's happening in all these countries. EVs are the future. I have to get in right now. I buy, and then it goes down, because how often has price action on stocks not been congruent with what you're seeing in the news? And then I have to buy more and bring my dollar cost average down. So I will just wait. I'm not going to FOMO in. I'm going to keep emotion out of the room. I've got my order right here. I do want Rivian. I want it down here. And that's that. But the reason I bring this up is because it is a stock that I like long term. They are backed by Amazon. If you see the electric Amazon trucks, the new ones, those are all made by Rivian. If you see a Tesla owner, you see a Rivian owner, ask them, how do you like it? Go find for yourself, see what you think, keep an eye on these stocks. We're going to look at everything like long term. Let's actually go ahead and remove all this and let's zoom out to a larger time frame. So you see this thing had high hopes of being a $200 or $300 stock, and then reality set in. This was 2021. I don't know why during the Biden administration this thing didn't just pop off, because they loved them some solar and they loved them some EVs. But I guess that was just the perfect storm for exit liquidity. And if you guys have been buying stocks and watching the news and thinking the stock's going to go up and been left holding the bag, I'm guessing that might be one of the reasons why you're here. I do not follow the news very closely, and I have been nobody's bag holder here lately. So let's look at some other gap fills on the weekly. That might be the one I just mentioned a minute ago. Yeah, I believe it's at 23.10. So we will highlight this gap fill once more, and then look at these liquidity grabs. Look at these tails here. This tells me that there are large volume players that do not want this stock to go up right now. And that's why when I draw a line like this, is this the low or is this the low? Yeah, 826 right here. When I make a line like this, you connect all these and you want it hitting as many of them as possible. That's where I get my levels from. All right, now this thing also seems to run into a lot of trouble at this level. You look, it stopped there, stopped here, resistance, support, blew down through it, never confirmed on the weekly. You want another green candle after this one to show you, yes, I'm going to stay above this line. It did not do that. Again, didn't confirm on the weekly. Again, didn't confirm on the weekly. This one was another green candle, but you want the body of the green candle to be above the body of the first green candle. I know they're blue. Again, didn't confirm, and then it got above it for a little while here, but eventually came back down. We're below again, didn't confirm, and now we are banging our heads against the ceiling. It is a good sign. It's bumping this line like 5 weeks in a row. It really wants to go up, but something's pushing it down. And for that reason, it would be my estimate that this goes down to, let's go back to the daily, that this goes down to, looking at the other gap fill right here, that this goes down to 1298 to fill that gap. And you see I'm a little more generous with my upward sloping trend line than I was a minute ago. So let's go out to the monthly and see why that line was where it was. So sometimes you want as many wicks of these to hit the trend line as possible to show you the level, but that can work against you too, because you can buy at a level where you think is a level, and if you think, market makers know where these trend lines are, okay? All these people like me that draw trend lines, the difference between me and a lot of other people is I don't fail as often because I consider that my line could be in the wrong spot. So let's take this opportunity to make it a teachable moment. Take volume off so it's a little bit easier to see. We're on the monthly. Large time frames provide clarity, guys. You have one trend line that is hitting as many of these little wicks as possible. Let's call that your best case scenario trend line. What you're going to want to do, and I usually just move one around, but for the sake of this video and the sake of the point I'm making, I am going to make a second trend line, and let's call this the worst case scenario trend line. Now you start flat. It's not hitting any of the other candles, right? So now you want to make it hit the first one. Where does it come up and tag the first one? Right there and there, it hits that one at the same time, right? Boom. Can you see the wicks? You can see this wick popping through a little bit, right? This one doesn't matter. You've got one. This one, this trend line has one wick touching it. This trend line has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wicks touching it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wicks actually piercing through. So what that tells you is because they've pierced through before, they might pierce through again. Your best case scenario trend line can be easily pierced. Your worst case scenario trend line means that if it touches that line, that might be it. So when you do something like this, if, let's say, going back to the daily, I'm going to use this most generous / best case scenario trend line and I would buy and then you go to the daily, you can even drag it up a little bit more just so this wick hits it too. Okay? Because it's a local bottom. You would want this to hit. But you do this and you say, all right, my buy level's 1401. Now, on a stock like Rivian, this isn't going to be the end of the world, but it's important to see. Rivian is a relatively young stock, and there's not going to be that much of a difference between you saying, I'm going to buy this at, let's just pretend I'm not messing this line up by bringing it further out. What's the difference between me buying this at $14 and me buying this at $12.54? Well, nothing. If you're a regular person who doesn't have that much skin in the game, it's not a big deal. But if you are, a heavy investor, or your retirement's on the line, or you're making a big bet in this, or you're institutional, or something to that effect, the difference between $14 and $12.54, we're talking percentages here, right? That's 10%. So if you're putting $1 million into this, or you're putting $10 million into this, that's a different. A million. 10% of $1 million is 100,000. 10% of 10 million is 1 million. So it makes a big difference in the grand scheme of things. And ultimately, if you want to be a winner and you want to have higher probabilities that are, if you want to keep bringing your win rate this much closer to 100, never going to get to. I don't think any of us will ever get to 100% win rate. But if you want to close that gap and bring your win rate this much closer to 100%, you're going to need to make moves like this. And the difference between buying at this trend line and buying at this trend line is what's going to do you in, is what's going to make or break your P&L down the road. It will make a difference. So now my monthly trend line is right with the wicks. Now let's zoom out and bring this daily trend line out that corresponds with this gap fill. That's my buy level, guys. Right around here. And this gap fill is right between your, let's call it your bear case trend line and your bull case trend line. Like your most optimistic trend line and then your most pessimistic or realistic trend line. You're going to want to create a range, work within that range, and then find things that start to line up and paint a picture for you and leave you clues and make it more clear so you can say, all right, even if I'm not sure which of my trend lines is going to be correct or where this thing is ultimately going to come to rest, I have the gap fill as an extra little hint to tell me where to buy so that I can maximize my gains going forward. Guys, that's Rivian. If you've gotten value out of this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Also subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you will get notified when we drop these babies on an almost daily basis. I'll link some other videos that might be helpful right here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Trade wisely.